Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we will be discussing the decolonization of Africa. Now, between 1945 and 1960, 36 new states in Asia and Africa achieved autonomy or outright independence from their European colonial rulers. There was no one process of decolonization. I mean, in some areas, it was peaceful and orderly. In many other areas, independence was achieved only after a protracted revolution, meaning that they went to war to get their independence. We're talking about the decolonization of Africa. But I believe before we go too deep here, we have to talk about Africa without colonialism. Think about that. Would Africa economic development have been different without colonialism? Would it be richer today? I'm pretty sure millions of Africans thought about this. Now, there's been a debate for quite some time for the past 50 years. Would Africa be more prosperous without colonial interjection, without colonial rule? I mean, a few observations are in order. I mean, most African countries saw steadily rising incomes over the colonial period relative to the base of year of 1885, meaning because colonial rule, Africa did better. Their salaries increased, so to speak. Now, Africans were able to reap the benefits of the introduction of railways and mining technology. Furthermore, being colonized meant deeper integration into world trade, meaning they had other avenues of income because of colonization. Now, how much of this is due to being colonized? How much it would have been happened anyway? The wake of trade expansion is very, very unclear in this 50 years of research. I mean, the fact that we see living standards increased on average does not imply that everybody's living standards increase. I mean, for instance, in South Africa, the emerging impact of land exploration and the creation of dual economies. We're talking about Palmer and Parsons in 1977 on incomes suggest that Africans experience a severe deterioration in living standards as a consequence of colonialism. So we might observe formal sector wages going up while the vast majority of the African population cut off from their formal sector, sees its purchasing power deteriorate, meaning they can't buy as much things as they once could. Now, to judge the impact of colonialism on development in Africa simply by looking at outcomes during the colonial period as a conceptual mistake. This is a huge mistake that so many people make. Post-independence Africa looks nothing like it would have done in the absence of colonialism. Indeed, in most cases, post-independence economic decline in Africa can be explicitly attributed to colonialism because the types of mechanisms that led to this decline were creations of colonial society. When we take into account the three types of colonies. Now, it seems reasonable to assume that all groups absent colonialism have had same contacts with the rest of the world. This implies missionaries would have gone to convert people and build schools. See, right there, missionaries have gone to convert people, meaning manipulated the spirit of Africans with Christianity, with Catholicism. I digress. Because we understand the League of Nations would have tried to abolish coerced labor. That's what they say. And the WHO would have probably tried to decimate medical technology. Moreover, it implies that African countries would have continued to export as many had prior to 1885. In terms of political institutions, in the first set of countries, the type of state formation and development that had taken place in the 19th century would have continued. The evidence clearly suggests that states such as Tanzania, Botswana, Ghana, Rwanda were becoming more centralized and consolidated. I mean, this does not imply that economic institutions would necessarily become better. Nevertheless, political centralization is a prerequisite for order and public good provision. And those states also collapse once started, there are strong forces leading political centralization to intensify. Now, in the second and third sets, we assume that political institutions would have continued on the path they had in the 19th century. So there's a lot of things to unpack here, because we understand in colonies of white settlement, the most important factor was that highly extractive nature of colonial rule and the land grabs manifesting themselves, as we noted, in quite serious immiserations of Africans during the colonial period. The evolution of the international dissemination and diffusion of technology, plus the relative absence of slavery in this part of Africa, makes it likely that if absent of colonial rule, Africa would have did 2 times the amount they're doing today economically. African living standard would have slowly improved as well. See, the large increase inequality and the racial and ethnic conflict bequeathed to these colonies after the end of colonialism, making it plausible that development outcomes in places such as Zimbabwe be better today and over the last century. Now, the third of these cases are more complex because it does not seem plausible that the pre-colonial institutions of Somalia, for example, were conducive to development or were undergoing a process of state formation. Yet, even in many of these more ambiguous cases, it seemed hard to make a strong case in favor of colonialism. Now, actually fostering some development, it could be considered that Uganda, that the British brought stability by stopping long-running conflicts between the pre-colonial states of Uganda, Bunyoro, and Call and Toro. Yet the evidence suggests that even these societies were ready to adopt better technology when it appeared, and any gains that might have been in terms of stability were reversed when the British left in 1962, bequeathing to the Ugandans a policy and political power with no workable social contract, resulting in 50 years of political instability. So when the British left Uganda, they left them 50 years of political instability, military dictatorship, and civil war. So when you look at this family, all in all, it's a difficult to bring the available evidence together with plausible counterfactual to argue that there is any country today in sub-Saharan Africa that is more developed because it was colonized by Europeans. That is quite the contrary. That is quite the contrary. We have to look at this because when we think about Africa and we think about how Africa is the richest continent in the world, but with the poorest people living on it. And as I stated before, when the colonizers went over to Africa, they also brought technologies of mining and railroad. Also, they started 1,000 years of beef in the Ugandans and other sorts of African countries. So the narrative and perspective, a lot of philosophers and economists would say that half would say Africa benefited from colonialism in modern day society. Then the other half absolutely disagrees, because without a foot in the door, who are we to say that Africans would have even let Europe in their trading market, let alone colonize damn near the entire continent and still strip them of their resources today, but say they're free, say they are independent. So we're talking about hundreds of years being colonized, and now with some remnants of some residue of France and of course a large portion of China and some other European countries, Western countries, Eastern countries, Africa is still being colonized economically. Africa has essentially been pimped for the last couple of 100 years. When will Africa ever be decolonized? Now, first and foremost, anytime you talk about betterment, improvement, ascension, moving forward, the one thing you have to do is strengthen yourself, right? So I believe that as an African people, they are not landmass. They need to first decolonize their minds. Before they leave the continent, they must decolonize their mind. Either you stay on the continent or you flee and migrate to another landmass. But you have to decolonize your mind. See, the difference between uh, descendants of American slaves, foundational Black Americans, indigenous Black Americans, American Indians who are melanated, the difference is when the Europeans came and enslaved us, there was a continuous fight from our ancestors. It was a continuous fight. And that is why so many of us got killed. Because we understand that only 3% of our people came over from Africa. Majority of them was dropped off in Brazil. I think 5 million slaves were dropped off in Brazil. And I think America was anywhere between 300,000 and 600,000. But the landmass was fully populated. And even the Europeans at the time recorded that when they showed up to the land, there was melanated people there, not just your East Mongolian, Southern China looking people. No, not from what we know today, or Eskimos. There was a lot of people, but nonetheless, when we look at how we think about white tyranny and white oppression, and the way that you guys think about it is 100% difference, because you have a colonized mind, because they allowed you to live with them, quote unquote. But why they changed your entire government, your Justice Department, your economics, your resources, your agriculture, whatever you want to call it, they controlled it. They even moved you off your own land. And you guys were the majority. Biggest point. You guys were the majority. We were the minority, and we were still fighting. Some of it was political. Some of it was physical. And I'm not saying that no Africans fought back. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, for you being the majority of the population and let 1% of another population come over and they have advanced weaponries, I don't know if that would have went down here in America if we was the majority. I just don't believe that will happen, just because of our spirit. And I'm not saying you guys don't have warrior spirit. I don't want this to be a co-op or a contradictory. I don't. But we understand that so many of our great, Black American philosophers, like your Neely Fullers and your Francis Cress Welsings, Dr. Henry Clark, when you think about these people and you think how many years they thought in advance of what was going to occur to us. I mean, Dr. Claude Anderson said it the best. He said by the year 2040, there are going to be 6 million Black immigrants in America. And there's going to be 41 Asian immigrants in America. Why did he say that? Because right now, we're sitting at the third minority of a population in America as Black Americans. When Dr. Anderson said this, we were the second minority majority, meaning we had most people one step from white people. They were probably 70% or 75% of the population, and we was around 20, but we were always higher than any other group. Now we're third, and he projected for us to be fourth. So why is this important that when we start talking about the decolonization of Africa? Because it's just not their justice system. It's just not their economics. It's just not the way they conduct business. It's everything. And so when they migrate or flee their country, because they use those words, They come over here with that colonized mindset. And that's why there's this clash between Black Americans and Black immigrants right now. Believe believe it or not, that's what's going on. I've been researching for the past 30 days, and I see everyone talking about this now. That means that there's this dispute that when Black immigrants come over here from the Caribbean and Africa, they blend in until they get the bag, and then they turn their back on us. That's one concept. That's just one. The other is that the only Africans and Caribbeans that come over here, mostly Africans when it comes to this, only part of a certain class because they're the only ones who can afford to come over here. So they're already co-opted with another group, most likely in a political manner. This is why when you look at the Congressional Immigrant Black Caucus, you will see that a lot of members of the board are immigrants. And then you see it tells you for underserved communities and minorities and not just Black people, even though Asians, Hispanics have their own congressional caucuses. See, decolonizing of the mind basically keeps your mind in parallel that your white oppressors are better than you. The one major thing that the Europeans did, and sometimes evil can be actually good, meaning that they're so evil they were good at it, right? Or they were so good they was good at being evil. However you want to look at it, but the point I'm making is they brought Christianity to Africa because they understand that there's this 3-level focus that we all need to have. You have your spirit, right? You have your mind, and you have your body. They control your spirit by bringing you white baby Jesus. That's what they did. And they made sure that the imagery of Jesus was white. And at first you were resistant, but because of maltreatment, getting whipped, getting killed, because we understand that you guys went through some form of that as well. You guys converted. And that transcended all the way up to the transatlantic slave trade. There's so many arguments today when it comes to different groups, like the Black Hebrew Israelites and Hebrews, and all these religious groups are trying to prove or disprove that the Bible originated out of Africa or out of Europe. But even though we have so much information that the Europeans brought Christianity to Africa, that's how they stole your spirit. They made you docile. They made you nonviolent. You didn't want to fight back. I'm just saying. This is my perspective. When I put the evidence together, when you read all the books you can possibly read, the produced content, this is what you come up to. That you guys were the majority. You might not have the military advanced technology, but you guys didn't formulate your forces and fight back because they first stole your spirit and then they stole your mind. They used your mind when it came to tribalism. You were separated, they separated you even more. And this went on for hundreds of years. So New Age Africans may not understand this. And then they take that colonized mindset and they come to America. And then some of the hate and vitriol that their mother and father, their grandfather and grandmother gave them, that Black Americans are less than. But I understand that's from colonization. I understand why Caribbean and African people on a large scale are using cake soap and whitening cream because they want to be closer to their oppressor. They want to be close to their colonizer. But it's psychological. So I don't I don't look at this as I'm looking down on my cousins across the, across the pond. No, I understand that this colonization is psychological. It's not just something that you guys are just deciding to do. It has already been decided in your subconscious mind, and you just on autopilot. I get it. And some people were like, "Man, you giving them a damn excuse." I'm trying to tell you, when you really when you really look at the psychology of this, it's because they have been living in a colonized mind. I mean, for hundreds of years, and then in the 1960s, right, 1940s to 1960s, the Europeans left the countries in shambles. Right, they was doing things one particular way for a very, very long time. Right, even before the industrial age, and now we're in the modern age. A lot of the African countries just got their independence between the 1945s and the 1960s. So they're on what, 40 something years removed from tyranny and oppression. And so what did they do? They said, well, we have this country, we have all of these different lines of business. How do we deconstruct this, dismantle this, take this apart, and build it up more African? They didn't do that. They didn't say, hey, just keep it running. The way we run our justice system, yeah, the way the white people did it before they left, yeah, they just do it that way. Just do it that way. The way we do economics, yeah, just keep on doing it that way. Capitalist society. Let's just how would Africans done it prior to colonization? I mean, I don't know that. But what I'm saying is, in order for them to decolonize their country, they will have to dismantle their economics, the whole economic ecosystem. They will have to dismantle their infrastructure, not hard buildings and roads and anything that matter, but just the way they go about doing business, because they have been subjugated of colonization for far too long. And now we're seeing the remnants of those great grandfathers and grandmothers to Generation X, to the millennials, to Generation Z. And these are the people that are coming over here and saying, why are you Black Americans asking for reparations, and why are you asking this, and why you're not doing that? And they don't understand our history here in America. And they already come over here with a colonized mindset. So hopefully you're putting it all together. And even when you can give them in-depth context about the way how we look at white supremacy and white oppression in this country, some of them still can't see it. Because you ever guys look like those movies like Born Identity, where they had some sort of special program and they brainwashed him? A colonized mind is brainwashed, folks, and not everybody can break that. Not everyone can break that particular mindset. So I understand when a lot of Africans and Caribbeans come over here because of white colonization, European colonization for far too long. They've gotten their new training in colonization, right, in indoctrination from birth. Just like you and I. Most Black Americans are Christians. Why are you a Christian? You are a Christian because you was raised a Christian, and nobody's going to move you from your Christianity, right? That's because you have been indoctrinated. You have been colonized in the mind since you were young, since you were 5. You had no choice. Because I tell people this: if you grew up in a Muslim household, you're telling me you wouldn't be Muslim? Think about that. If you grew up in a Buddhist household, you wouldn't be Buddhist? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself, family. Why would somebody give you their religion to be free? Because I tell you, once they got your mind, once they got your spirit and mind, it's a wrap. Your body will follow. Your body follow commands from your mind. So if they have taken over your mind by brainwashing, indoctrination, in years, then they control you. And then when you come over here, the hate, some of, not all of Africans and Caribbeans, I'm not speaking for all, but those know who I'm talking about. You come over here with hate and vitriol and you don't even know why. And I get it. It's psychological. We have to look at these things, guys, in deeper context and understand that this is necessarily not giving anyone from the places I mentioned a pass, but I think we have to look at things on a deeper level, because some of them will not be converted. Some of them will not break their programming. Because my thing is this: if I went to an African country and you, the people, are fighting oppression, political powers, you guys are asking for reparations, et cetera, guess what I'm going to do with that struggle and fight? Absolutely nothing. I'm not getting involved and I'm not saying a damn thing. What am I saying? A lot of people from the Caribbean, a lot of people from Africa come over here and start to speak in politics and start to speak out loud about what Black Americans should and should not get. Shut your damn mouth. That's it. You came over here for resources. You came over here for opportunities. Go ahead, take the resources, take the opportunities. Just don't say shit. Oh, I am an American citizen now. Okay. You came over here for a better life, or did you come over here to disrupt what Black Americans already put in place? What are you trying to do? I see. I couldn't do that. If I went to an African country, I took my resources from America, I took my money, and I lived in the African countries, I would just be on the beach chilling. I'm gonna let them fight for their country. I'm gonna let them improve their country. I'm not gonna speak ill will about their people publicly, socially. I'm not going to do that. But this is the problem. A lot of them have come over here and have done that to us and still doing it to us. See, a lot of times I have to look up everybody. I have to look up everybody to see if they are a descendant of American slaves or foundational Black Americans or Black Indigenous American or American Indian. I have to look them up. And when I find out and I look these people up, most likely the ones who neglect us, the one who undermines us, the one who co-opt us, they're immigrants. I hate to say it, but that's the truth. Black immigrants. We already know what Hispanics are about. We already know what Asians are about. We already know what whites are about. That's all part of a white oppression system. Okay. And also, when we look at Pan-Africanists, right? At one point in time, I did believe in a movement, but that started to fade around 3 years ago, because I saw the tide of how a lot of ratchet culture, believe it or not, is not Black Americans. A lot of the ratchet culture is not Black Americans. You have to look up people's history and who their parents are, and then you see where they get their mind state from. But do you know that there's Black Americans out there now that they believe that the Pan-Africanist movement is a form of white supremacy? Did you guys know that? They're now saying that, hey man, you're a Pan-Africanist, you're a white supremacist. And when you really give it some thought, family, you're like, well, if you're a Pan-Africanist, you're going to vote on immigration issues, right? You're going to vote to bring more immigrants over. Well, history shows us that when we bring immigrants over, and they get into political positions of power, they don't do anything for Black Americans, the descendants of slaves here in America. If anything, they bypass us. So then the question would be, why would you support immigration? And then that leads back to Pan-Africanism. Why would you support that if not to make a bond and join? Because some people are like, okay, yeah, we can do contractual, transactional agreements, but you can stay in Africa and we can stay in America. Some people have said that too. Family, this is not me. I'm just telling you guys what I've heard. They say that Pan-Africanism is a form of white supremacy. Because you know what the Black immigrants are doing to Black Americans, then why are we trying to form a partnership? Let's put that on hold until we get out things that we deserve. See, Africans have a fight too. They should be demanding, they should be fighting through the UN to get their reparations from the European nation. All the European countries that benefit off of Africa and oppress them in apartheid in South Africa through the total colonization of Africa, they should be fighting for reparations in their country. And if I was over there and they were fighting for reparation, as I told you, I'm not saying a damn thing. So it amazes me how you hear some people like, oh, black, we don't need, they say we too. Hold up. We don't need reparations. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Who that? Who is that? You got to look them up. You got to Google them real quick. Wait a minute. You're from Nigeria. Why are you even talking about reparations for us? You should be working on reparations in Nigeria to the European nation. It's kind of like, don't put your mouth on people. Family, those are my thoughts for tonight. So the only way that Africa will be free from European colonization and Chinese and economic imperialism is when they decolonize their minds and then decolonize the colonizers' systems that they left in place. And then second, you have to cut the umbilical cord on China. Stop letting China give you blood loans. Talking about, we're going to give you $15 billion, triple your GDP, by the way, but you took the $15 billion and you have to pay that back in 5 years, knowing that your yearly revenue for your entire country is not even $100 million, but you took the money. I know that's greed and corruptions. And a lot of people over there would say the reason why we can't progress, the reason why things aren't better in this country is because of the government. Well, if they want to take a page out of our book, because again, they come over here, they blend in, they skin in, they want to take a page out of our book, look at how we handle the government. Look how we handle justice. You'll have social media creators talking out against it, making other powers that know, putting pressure on the political power structure here in America. And we're the minority. And you're the majority. And I said, in any great revolution, people will die. If Africa is not ready to die, they will always be colonized, either economically or through all their systems within their infrastructure in their country. They will be controlled. You have to have a revolutionary mind, meaning that you are not afraid to die, meaning that you're willing to do anything possible to make your country as better than any other country in a European nation or the Western nation like America. You have to be ready to die. And it can't just be one of you, two of you, 100 of you, 1,000 of you. If you got 50 million people in your country, you're going to need about 25%, because 25% of the country can tear that bitch up. And at the end of the day, all those people in the government who like oppressing the people, keeping these heinous dictatorships, because not all, now someone's going to look at me wrong when I say this, but not all dictatorships I believe are wrong. I believe the dictatorship in Rwanda is not wrong. That guy has done a terrific job, and I haven't heard any negative stories out of Rwanda, according to the president. I think his name is Paul Kagame. But that's the only one I think I currently approve of. Of course, that can change day by day. But I'm just saying, that's what you will have to do. And everything you do with China will have to be contractual, meaning that if they give you $15 billion, that you give them something of equal worth. If they want that special metal that they make cell phones with, well, that's what you give them, how many tons you need. And if you believe from the current world trade free markets, of that material for that amount of weight equals 15 billion, then that's how much you give them. But see, there's other contractual things that I think that Africa went wrong because of their corrupt governments. Is 50% of your workforce when you come over here has to be African, has to be the countrymen. And then also the machinery. 50% of the people who operate the machinery must be African. It must have to be an equal split, because this is the only way Africa is going to get advanced technology and actually get skills, because I believe that Chinese are the only ones over there building, while many Arabs and Indians are taking, and Frenchmen and everyone are taking. I mean, right now, who is it? Is Germany, France, I think the Swiss and the Russians are over in Mali. I believe the French troops were over in Mali for 10 years and then couldn't, I guess, dismantle and kill off all these rebels. And now there's like 2 or 3 different armies, European armies in Mali, stating that they won't leave because, we don't want to leave because we don't want to leave your country in civil arrest. They're like, no, you have done nothing for us. Leave. They went out and actually hired the Russians. My question is this: what African nation has the most powerful military? I don't know if it's Kenya. I don't know if it's Nigeria. But here's the thing: why didn't Mali just hire one of the most powerful African nations' army? I don't get that. Why you keep? And I understand you have rebels, you have civil unrest. I got it, but now you have countries like France, like Germany, like this. So I believe it's the Swiss. I could be wrong there. And now you have Russia, and nobody's leaving. Now you wanted Russia to come, but France and Germany to leave, and they're not leaving. And now what do? They're more powerful than you. See, you have to start dealing with your own. That's part of that colonized mindset. China has blood loans. They're anchored in. They're owning your land. Come on, man. And you guys are saying the government. Okay. And that goes all the way back to a colonized mindset that first they took your spirit by giving you Christianity, which made you docile, which makes you just forgive. Oh, I forgive them. Keep on forgiving. Keep on forgiving. You guys have a great night.